Hello again. This is Matt Harris with the Magento Association Podcast, welcoming back Sergej from Amasty.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's get into the Magento Association. This is a good segue, right? So what's your involvement in the association, just so people know?
Okay, so when I first volunteered to be part of Magento Association, it was just marketing activities. Earlier, previous year, I tried to help somehow with marketing. There were a lot of people on board. I made some research projects on what community value in Magento Association, how we can help them to understand that they're more valued, what we can bring them as extra, let's say, help and support and so on. I helped with some, content, and that's it. It was pretty active, and I understood that I'm not a marketer. I'm a professional manager. I have some experience in having an account and I'm managing Amasty, and anyway, I'm in communication with all departments, and they have to align the strategy, understand how to promote it, and so on. But let's say I'm not hands-on marketer. So I understood that my help could be pretty limited. But after a while, when I joined, it appeared that there were some changes. So I volunteered to help with, let's say, managing this opportunity. Then different people were changing in the team. And it appeared that by the beginning of this year, I was doing not only management activities, but partially helping with production of some, content and managing some initiatives and creating content for these initiatives as well. So at the moment, let's say we have a pretty small team. We have Chris, who helps us with design. We have Matt, who helps us with creation podcast. So then we have Yulia, who helps us with LinkedIn promotion time to time. And we have Sergej, who helps us with content creation, content promotion.
Reminding people you're supposed to get.
Yeah, and I decided for some reason that it's not enough. And I volunteered to be a board member and was elected to the board member. And decided that probably I can help with something else. And I volunteered to be a treasurer. So now I'm wearing a lot of hats in terms of Magento Association. And I would say I have a joke that some days I have to work for Magento Association more than for Amasty.
Yeah. I'm assuming you're seeing some synergies there, though. The better the Magento Association is, the better Amasty will probably.
Yeah, definitely. Magento is still our, as I said, it's a core of our business.
Yeah.
And the prosperous Magento is prosperous Amasty. Let's say I relate it this way. And another thing is, let's say, I have a unique opportunity to collaborate with people all over the world from the community, understand their pains, and understand if we can help somehow to deal with them, or to make some kind of joint activities to be more effective in, let's say, promoting Magento across other platforms.
Yeah. I want to get back a little bit to Amasty for a second, because it reminded me of something, and this might relate also to the Magento Association, but this morning I was hearing a podcast and they were talking about Tim Cook leaving Apple, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they said one of the things that he did really well was that he understood that Apple was a mature company. It wasn't a teenager anymore. It wasn't on this massive ramp up like Steve Jobs did of innovation. It had become a mature company, and then it needed to create a culture where they could continue to innovate and grow, but basically secure what they've built, right? They built a very global brand, maybe one of the greatest brands ever. And they've been incredibly successful. But they they demonstrated maturity. They've evolved into something mature, global. And I'm wondering if there is, so when you came into Amasty, you talked about maybe changing the culture a little bit, maybe creating some standards and better practices and stuff. So in my mind, I was thinking like, this has gone to let's create some maturity around this. And I'm wondering if that was your experience in thinking. And if that also maybe relates to the Magento community and ecosystem. It's no longer kind of this ragtag bunch of open source, Wild West kind of like, we're going to create a bunch of stuff fast. But there's a maturity level that maybe people are missing. And maybe there's a maturity level in Amasty that's like, no, we're here for the long run. I'm wondering if you're thinking about things in this way too. Like, is that part of the kind of future for you of both the company Amasty and the brand Magento?
Yeah, when I joined the company, we started research. It was a little bit complicated due to COVID times, and when there's a huge hype on e-commerce from every direction, it was pretty hard to understand what are long trends for Magento. But let's say during this period, we understood pretty realistically that there are two ways to run this business: to create this one-time payment products and sell future without any obligations, or try to change a little bit the structure of the company and make sure that it's a well-trusted relationships with well-established obligations. Because let's imagine you are selling the product, any product. Open source product could be, let's say, I'm comparing all this with cars. You are not able to sell the car saying like, okay, everything is lifetime guaranteed. Probably it's a nice opportunity to sell more. But what happens where you're selling more and more cars, right? So you need to maintain all of them. And it becomes an issue with every next sold car.
Mm-hmm.
And they comes that like there are not so many new clients coming to buy new cars, but there are a lot of frustrated and disappointed clients that are looking for their maintenance services.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of our first experiments. And then it was, let's say, supported by Adobe as well. And they introduced it in Adobe Marketplace as well. And we started a subscription. I believe it's not about the money, like to be super rich. Like I'm still not a millionaire, and Amasty is not growing like double every year. It's not so. Like we are pretty modest in terms of our growth. We haven't grown in terms of our employees during the last 3 or 4 years. Like regardless number of clients, new clients coming to Amasty, we are still able to support existing clients and make sure it's a long-term game. We are here as long as they need our products.
Mm-hmm.
They're subscribing, they're getting the value. And it's what you are saying about the maturity. At the moment, we are doing experiments with other platforms as well. But they have their own revenue stream, they have their own budget, they have their own resources, and it's like I like the different management approaches. And there is a scaled agile framework approach, where let's say a lot of different value streams, and there is supporting organization. Supporting organization should be super small and lean, just to make sure that they create, they facilitate activities. But every revenue stream is self-sufficient and able to provide long-term sustaining results. So for me, as I said, like it was one of the ideas to make sure we totally understand that we are able to provide trusted, well-established business for long-term e-commerce. It's not like it's as I mentioned, like when you're signing contract with Adobe, you are 100% sure that it will not close your platform tomorrow. it has contract obligations to support it. You will know definitely in advance if there are some changes. Like when you say subscribing users for a specific service and they paid for the next year, you are not able to say, okay, guys, we are going to deprecate this product or close the company tomorrow. You still have like contractual obligations.
Right. Yeah, I had this graph out the other day. I posted it where it showed the movements in the platforms. And, COVID changed a lot. It actually, helped the SaaS platforms a lot. It also, where you saw the biggest decline was on non-platform. So it was homegrown stuff. It was kind of older legacy e-commerce systems built on a variety of things, .NET platforms. So the transition that happened was a lot of companies building a new e-commerce platform kind of in a hurry, COVID. Shopify obviously came out a big winner in that scenario because you could basically do it quickly, and the SaaS platform had a good value proposition in terms of moving fast. There was some decline in some of the open source platforms a little bit, but since then, what I've noticed is, interestingly, Magento has kind of held firm. The Magento platform has basically established itself in a certain tier in the marketplace, which, depending on how you do the math, is top 3. You could say top 2, depending on how you evaluate Woo, which is a whole other conversation. So it's actually kind of, that this idea that there was people were abandoning open source e-commerce for SaaS commerce is not really the picture. I don't think that's really there was some of that for sure, but I also see there's some people reevaluating SaaS now and being like, oh, these open source models actually give us more flexibility, maybe a lower total cost of ownership, and yeah, there'll be additional dev costs, but we want to create a unique value proposition, and it's hard for us to do that in the SaaS platform, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that there has been a kind of like leveling out. That's been my perspective. And so it's also, I think it's an opportunity for kind of the Magento brand to say, listen, we've been in this game for a long time. There's thousands of businesses running on our software. We've presented a lot of value to these businesses. We're now, the future is very stable. Even though, open source has a reputation of being, maybe dev heavy and less stable. I don't think that's the case, depending on who you're working with and who you talk to. So, it's interesting. I just think it's like we're in a new era now, particularly with AI, which we won't get into, but we could. But I think there's going to be a lot of disruptors. But yeah, I don't know. I think
there are a lot of perspectives here. For example, like from my understanding, Magento is the still leader of its own segment.
Right.
When I'm saying like Magento, I mean Magento plus Adobe Commerce. So if we treat it as not SMB segment, where like small, medium, and large businesses, but how I call it, MBEE segment, is where, let's say, businesses are starting from at least, 5 million annual revenue. Then if you check this kind of the businesses and what platforms they are running on, at the moment, Magento is still the leader of this segment. Because probably like Shopify made an attempt to convince the people that Shopify Plus is pretty, say, robust solution for them. But the case is how call people in project management is term. It's rent or own decision. And I've made a presentation on it for Meet Magento Philippines last year. It was about, let's say, what is the philosophy and the core values of your company. Is e-commerce for you just, let's say, side business, or it's a core business? If it's a core business, why you are renting your core competence.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is like one of the solutions, for example, that Nike very straightforward said that like they would like to sell more for them on their own website than from any platform like Amazon, for example.
Yeah.
Is there was the decision because they believe that e-commerce is a super powerful distribution channel, and why they should give the control of the most powerful tool they have to a third party.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
like it's for me, if e-commerce is a just small segment of my business, I'm not doing all my let's say transactions on it. It's just 5-10% of it. Why should I invest a lot of efforts in building my own solution? Probably it's still fine to distribute it. For example, there is a nice example of a company that runs on Shopify and they're pretty let's say, satisfied with the results of Tesla. But let's take a look at what the core values of Tesla and what is Shopify for them. It's almost nothing.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's how many products are they selling there,
Yeah.
and what their core values. So they can easily swap to a different platform, like in minutes if they would like to.
Yeah. What I've noticed in the last year, probably last 2 years or year and a half, is businesses coming to me and saying, how do I own my data? How do I own my technology? And I think AI has changed the game, right? Whether or not they want to go vibe code something or they want to build their own software themselves, they're reaching out to their partners and they're having conversations more around the kind of ownership of not just their data but their tech. So it kind of has opened up the ecosystem and the marketplace to these ideas of how we can change the dynamics of the marketplace where there could be more ownership on the side of the merchants, more control on the side of the merchants, and more sovereignty on the side of the merchants in terms of how they evolve their businesses with technology. And I think that's a very healthy conversation to have. I think that that's going to maybe lead a lot more people to look at open source and say, oh, wait, this is a way that we could do it. And we could start with these open source engines as a beginning and then add value with extensions or with AI or whatever. I don't know if you're seeing that, but that's kind of been my read of the marketplace here in North America.
I believe there are two different trends. The first trend on open source called like total cost of ownership. When people trying to calculate like when ownership of your solution really makes sense and what with the background here, like should we leave everything, for example, hire the agency or have our own in-house team, build everything ourselves or buy solutions, ready-made solutions, use only open source products or use commercial products. For example, there are a lot of nice open source product release. There are companies that can create powerful websites based on open source projects. Let's take a look at how many experiments Majors is doing. They're experimenting with a lot of nice stuff and they maintaining it. It's very important because when you're adding more and more open source code, could be a problem. Who's going to maintain it
Yeah.
when new release of the platform appears and so on. So it's more about what level of risk averse you have and what level of your maturity of your business. If
Yeah.
you're doing startup, it could be one niche. If you are doing, let's say, enterprise level business,
Yeah.
your risk aversion is different.
Yeah, there's a lot of risk being pushed into the marketplace right now with AI. I think we're gonna find out in the next year or so, like security and maintenance and stability. There's gonna be a lot of, but that's gonna be interesting to see how that plays out. But that kind of goes back to Amasty and the maturity and the Magento open source. Like this is a mature, stable platform, but it also checks the box of like sovereignty and independence in terms of owning your tech, right?
Yeah, this is like our approach here. We're trying to make sure that, let's say, long-term ownership of our extensions um, is, let's say, more profitable even to have AI with vibe coder who can support any version of it, because like you need any way to test it. You need to
Mm-hmm.
pay salary to the person who vibe codes it.
Right.
And you need to make sure that, let's say, you're able to integrate this code later and make sure, let's say, the edge case is supported.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another thing, like as you said, it's who owns the data and what is unfair advantage.
Yeah.
For example, if I own my data, I can decide what kinds of AI use it there, how to train the model, and how to get an advantage from the data. If it's, let's say, going through shop pay,
Yep.
I'm not able to control checkout.
Yeah.
It's their checkout. It's their clients, not mine.
Yeah.
I'm
And
not able to migrate from one payment service solution to another one.
Yep. So to wrap this up, in terms of let's say that you could decide the future for open source, for Magento, for Amasty, the Magento Association. What would you like to see? Like, what would you really like to see over the next few years that you think would mostly benefit merchants? Let's say the end customers on these software solutions.
I would say like that my dream picture, let's say that the future I would like to see is that AI helps to let's say use powers of open source, but give the flexibility of SaaS services, where you like in 3 Commons can make up and running your new website, style it as you like, get any customization you like, or install any plugins you like, because you have powerful AI who knows how to make basic transactions, how to install Magento on your own hosting, how to add extra extensions and configure them properly, how to make sure that, let's say, all ecosystem is tested and you can, let's say, it's safe to invite customers there. It's easier to support and you have better visibility of your, let's say, website health check. This is from one perspective. From other perspective, I believe it brings new opportunities for the people in the ecosystem. How you can promote Magento from the new way. How you can show that Magento solves the issues of mature businesses. And it's not so expensive in terms of, let's say, ownership as it was before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Definitely, there is always a solution. Like, should it be integrated with SaaS services or not? Like, my vision here is it's up to your understanding of your core values of your business. At the moment, you can plug and play different solutions. What we are doing from our perspective, we're adding more interfaces that can be easily plugged into your Magento without writing any, let's say, line of code.
Right. Yeah, and I think it also emphasizes the value of having, good partners, partners like Amasty. It emphasizes the value of the community sharing this information. Like, yeah.
This is what, like I'm saying, like several years in a row, until we all realize that customer does not care who is the responsibility, like delivering extensions, platform, or designing something. We will not win this rival with other platforms. It should be one source of responsibility is the facing agencies. All other, Kuva as a theme, Amasty as extension provider, Magento as a platform, should be just building blocks.
Right.
And we should, let's say, interact as one ecosystem, making sure we're creating value all together with a single point of contact for the end user.
Right. And that's where the Magento Association comes in, right? You join the association,
Definitely.
you find out about these new building blocks, the new tools, what the cool stuff people are building, and you can take that knowledge and bring it to your customers. And you're going to be that conduit between the ecosystem of cool stuff and the clients who eventually need it. And that the association is where you can find out about.
And find people, like-minded people, to share also experience and exchange ideas.
Yeah, and go to some cool events in some cool cities and meet some cool people and hang out. Yeah, that's part of the events are great, by the way. I'll close this up, but thank you, Sergej. But the Magento Association events are growing. They're global. And I think people are really getting a lot of value out of them. Hopefully people will be getting value out of this podcast. There's more coming in terms of the Magento website. We're looking for case studies, et cetera. More to come on that. But anyway, to summarize and to thank Sergej for taking time to be on this podcast. I appreciate you. Everything you've done for the Magento Association. We love Amasty, by the way. We always are promoting Amasty. You guys are probably one of the most important partners in the whole ecosystem. So thanks for all the work that you've done. And to wrap it up, the Magento podcast, you can find it on the Magento Association website. You can find it where you listen to your podcasts normally. Thanks for listening, and we will see you in next time.